All right, so now let's get into portrait mode. So basically portrait mode, you guys probably already know about it. People have been using this for a long time now. But portrait mode adds a fake artificial blur behind the subject to kind of give it like this portrait look. With a real camera, you use a specific lens combination to get a very shallow depth of field. So that means that the subject is in focus, and then behind the subject, you see everything else is blurred off. So portrait mode is kind of trying to accomplish that with software rather than the hardware itself. Because smartphone cameras have smaller sensors, which means that the depth of field is not going to be that shallow. So there's not going to be like a strong bokeh, like a strong fall off of focus from the subject. And a lot of people like that fall off of focus when it comes to like shooting portrait mode shots of people and different kinds of subjects. So yeah, portrait mode allows you to accomplish that kind of look, but artificially using software. And in portrait mode on the Z Fold 6, you have different options with the zoom levels. So you got 1x, and then you got 2x, and obviously 3x. And basically what you can do is you can adjust the strength of the blur. So you can make it more subtle, more soft, or you can just make the blur go crazy. But obviously the processing and the way the image looks might be more disrupted. There's more room for failure when you increase the blur level a lot. And also this works better when you're standing a little bit further away from the subject. And then if you go to these different filters kind of, then you have some different options. So in studio, you have the option of adjusting the way the lights look to kind of give it like a studio photography vibe. I think that's the idea that they're going for here. So you can slide this up or down. And then the next one is high key mono. And basically you're shooting a very interesting monochromatic shot. And then you got low key mono. I think it's the same thing, but just opposite. So focus there. And yeah, so it's a pretty interesting kind of, photography option right here that you can mess around with. I think it actually looks kind of cool, the low key mono. And then you got backdrop. So if you put, obviously I'm not taking a picture of a person right now, but I think this is mainly just focusing on like a face. And then the last one you have color point. So you can basically highlight the color of the main subject, and then everything else will kind of be grayed out or like desaturated. So yeah, these are just some different stylistic options you have in portrait mode, but mainly people are going to use it for the default option right here, which is just the blur. And I think it works pretty well on these modern phones. But to be honest, if you want to take a portrait shot, I would just go in pro mode and try to get as close to your subject as possible for natural bokeh to happen. Then you can also use the zoom lens to accomplish that as well. And like, of course, the natural fall off, the blur in the background is not going to be as dramatic as the portrait mode shots. But I feel like you can definitely accomplish some pretty good images. Like, look, you see, this is not using portrait mode. This is just pro mode. And the background is blurred out because that's just how cameras work with different focal lengths. And this doesn't have the biggest sensor in this phone, but I think you can accomplish some pretty good portrait shots in pro mode without using portrait mode. Portrait mode, because it's so like artificial and it's like creating an image stitching together with effects, the quality of the images is going to be lower, and then there's always room for the software to make errors when cutting out the subject and stuff like that. So yeah, I would suggest just trying to mess around with pro mode instead. And then at the top, you can obviously switch between your different aspect ratios, and that's about it for portrait mode. Night mode, it's basically regular photo mode, but just night mode, which means it's exposing for a longer time. It's leaving the shutter open longer than normal to capture more light. That's why this is good for night. But in the normal photo app, night mode will come up when there's less light in the image anyways. Like, as you can see the moon, when I cover the camera, the moon is showing up right here. You just tap that and then it will turn on night sight and then take a little bit longer to take an image, but it gives you a better looking image at night. Personally though, again with that, you can accomplish the same thing in pro mode and get an even better looking image because it's not using the same software processing that night mode is using, which kind of makes night images look like daytime. And personally, I don't like that look. So I rather pro mode to get an actual night shot that looks like nighttime, but exposed properly to how I want it to look. And then the next mode, you got food mode. So this is kind of just like trying to make food look really nice. Obviously I don't got no food right here, but you can turn on or off the blur effect, adjust the aspect ratio, and adjust the color, temperature. And yeah, it's really just trying to make food look nice. So there's that. You can accomplish this with other camera modes as well. You don't need to use food mode. You got panorama. Panorama is just, taking a panoramic shot. So you press it, then you move it around, following the guide to get a wider than normal shot. And you could do that in ultra wide or in 1x. You got portrait video, which basically is portrait mode with the artificial blur, the fake blur, but in video format. Then you got single take, which takes a photo and a video at the same time, and you can do different things with it, like original video, you can reverse it, and it like adds music and stuff like that. I don't know. It's an interesting little mode. Personally, I don't use it that often, but yeah, in the top right, you got different things that you can select for capturing. So like boomerang clips, where it kind of goes one way and then goes back the other way. Filtered pictures, collages. And then you got hyperlapse. Hyperlapse is basically capturing a video for a long time and then speeding it up really fast. You generally use this for like things like capturing the sky and like seeing the clouds move over the course of hours. Yeah, it's just, you can create some cool looking videos with hyperlapse. They just take a little bit of time. Then you got slow-mo. Personally, just don't use slow-mo. Like, don't use this mode. You could if you want to get something quick, I guess, but you really don't need to do this to achieve slow-mo. Like, what you do to get slow-mo is just record in 60 FPS, and then you go into your video editing app and just slow it down by 50%, and there you go. You have smooth looking slow-mo. But the cool thing, I guess, with the slow-mo mode is that you can record in 4K 120 FPS right off the bat. So that's kind of nice. And then you have dual recording. So this is one that I think is pretty cool. So as you can see, you can record with both cameras at the same time. So this is perfect for like vlogging and, you know, recording both perspectives, your perspective and then also what's going on in the background. You can do this up to 4K 30, and you can adjust the layout. So you can switch it like this, top and bottom split, or if it's horizontal landscape, then you can split it half of the screen. And then when it's like this, you can move around the smaller image as well. And that happens in real time. So if I record a video right here and I'm moving it around, if I end the video, then I go into it in the gallery, you can see that it's actually moving around in real time in the video clip. So this is a really cool option for like vlogging and stuff like that. I don't think many phones have this. And then you can also choose which two lenses record the video. So this was the front camera and the ultra wide camera, but you can also do like, let's say the ultra wide and the main camera, or the main camera and the zoom lens. So now you got two different kinds of perspectives. I think that is really sick, to be honest. And the fact that you can change the layout, actively compare the two different perspectives or use it for like different video effects or whatever you want to do. And you can take a picture. And you can choose to save the videos in separate files or save it as previewed as in one file. I think that would be the option to go with if you're doing something like this. So yeah, it's just a really cool option, a really cool mode for different things. There's so much potential in this. And then you have Bixby Vision. So basically this is kind of like Google Vision, where you can search the internet for different things. So right now I put it in front of the camera and then it's showing results. So it's telling me what kind of flower it is. Pretty cool. So yeah, that's basically what Bixby Vision is. It's just a way to Google search with your camera. And then you got AR zone. So you can do different things with augmented reality. You can create your augmented reality stickers and, you know, just take some creative photos with them. It's a lot of fun stuff if you want to mess around with it. Personally, I don't do this stuff too much, but it's there for the people who enjoy these kind of fun party tricks. And then the last camera mode is this right here, Expert RAW. This one, I'm not going to talk about it right now. I'll make a dedicated video for it because there's a lot. It's like the pro photography mode, except there's a lot more controls. So you got your general controls at the bottom, but then you have so much more. Like you can save different presets. So for example, if I know frequently outside, I'll shoot at 1/125 shutter speed, and then I'll have the ISO at like 100. That's like a default setting. Then I'll save that camera preset, and then I can call it like outside 1. Boom. So now I have that preset just there. Those settings are always going to be there. So if I go into Expert RAW app, then I can just automatically switch. So let me just show you now automatic mode. So now I'm in auto, and then if I go outside, I just press outside 1, and boom, now my settings come back. So that's pretty cool that you can have presets. And at the top, you got, you know, your different megapixel options, but this time you have 24 megapixels. This kind of matches the 24 megapixels that the iPhone 15 Pro Max shoots at by default, or the new iPhones in general shoot at 24 megapixels instead of 12. And it allows for a higher quality image while still being quick with the processing, and like it's less heavy, but still like higher detail than 12 megapixels. It's a good balance in between, I think. Then you got obviously the light metering options. And then this is where you can go crazy. You can mess around with like multiple exposures. You have astrophotography. You can go more in depth with that. Then you got like an ND filter. And this is something that I'll talk about very shortly after this to end the video. But basically, ND filters allow you to control the light intake more in depth than just the camera settings itself. This is like an artificial ND filter. There's actually physical ones that you can put over your camera to control that. The main difference between Expert RAW and Pro mode, like the manual camera mode, is that Pro mode, it applies no editing to the photo. It's just a raw image when you choose RAW. And in Expert RAW, it processes the image exactly like the photo mode, but then you still have your manual controls. So it's like the best of both worlds for people who don't want to edit their photos afterwards. And then in addition to all the extra features like I was saying. But yeah, Expert RAW, it deserves its own video because you can go crazy with it.